And we're back. This is the National Championship review. We're about a week and a half behind because this guy's been sick. And
sorry. Got real sick, and I was basically incapacitated for quite a while.
Yeah, he had the flu, and we don't like being around people who got the flu.
Nope.
So let's get started. Ohio State knocked off Notre Dame 34-23. That score is not really indicative just how dominating performance Ohio State really.
Yeah, I agree. Early on, Notre Dame got the football and went on that Mongolian death march of a drive and scored a touchdown. I was like, okay, we might have a little bit of a game here. Didn't think they were going to be able to hold Ohio State, but they did a pretty good job for that first quarter. The drive took almost the whole first quarter, but once Ohio State kind of got the ball, got rolling, they kept scoring. Chip Kelly called one hell of a game. There was a lot of plays in that game in the first half, in particular, and into the third quarter, really, with the wide receivers were doing an excellent job. Not just route running, but doing legal picks to create separation just by scheming guys open. They didn't, all the guys on Ohio State, all the wide receivers can get open. Right. But I thought they did a great job of scheming these guys open with the particular routes and the way they were running these routes. And it was fun to see. I'm not an Ohio State fan. I don't particularly care for them. Excuse me. But I thought it was a great game plan. And once they got rolling, there was no stopping them. Ohio State's defense figured out that Notre Dame was completely one-dimensional and then shut them down. And they made it a game. Second half, I think it was more along the lines of Ohio State knew they had it and was getting some guys some playing time. And Notre Dame kind of came back a little bit. But the game was really not in any kind of jeopardy at all. Quinshon Judkins had a huge day, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I still think they had a lot of transfer portal guys. I think they could have won a title without Caleb Downs. But I think Quinshon Judkins was really obviously Will Howard's like the one everyone's going to think about. But Quinshon Judkins, in my opinion, was really the catalyst. Travion Henderson is a great player. We saw what he did in the playoff game against Texas with the ridiculously long screen pass touchdown, just blazing speed. Excellent running back. But I felt this guy, Quinshon, coming from Ole Miss, bigger back, was the bruiser. He was the guy that was the bell cow. They could give it to him if they needed to 30 times a game, which they didn't never need to. But he was that guy, and he proved it. 11 carries for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith had a huge game as well. More so as a decoy for the most part. Mbuka and Carnell Tate, those are the guys that really benefit from having a guy like Jeremiah Smith. But kudos to Ohio State. They played great, won the national title. I think we can put to rest now, talking to my buddy Chris Connolly, big Ohio State guy, kind of Ohio State fans about the whole Michigan thing, like the one Ohio State guy on, Barstool Sports or whatever it was. He's like, we lost to Michigan, the season's over, let's decline the playoff invitation, and crap like that. Like, the coaches know. Yeah. The players know. You won the national championship. That is the goal. Beating Michigan, yeah, that's great, but that's not the goal. Maybe one of the goals, but it's not the goal of the season. I think Ohio State fans kind of lost sight of that, couple coaches left. Defensive coordinator bailed to go take the same position at Penn State, which is surprising. And then they lost Chip Kelly today to the Vegas Raiders. And, there was some people texting me. Good buddy Jason, he's another Ohio State season ticket holder, right, said that, there was some friction between the defensive coordinator and Ryan Day all season long. But you know what? That happens. Guy probably knows he's bailing after the season. But they put that crap aside and they got it done when they needed to. Great. And I think that's just great. Ohio State's a great program. Huge win for them. Yep. 10 years since their last natty.
Credit Ohio State for getting it done.
Yep. And Notre Dame, look, I don't think Notre Dame was that great of a football team. I think if Georgia had any semblance of offense at all, they would have beat them, especially the way the defense played. I felt the same way against Penn State. If Penn State had a wide receiver that could actually catch a football, they might have won that game as well. I don't think Notre Dame was the second best team in the country. No. I think they kind of
They lucked up on the seeding. I guess.
They did. They looked up on the seeding. They got to play Indiana at home, and they were able to overtake a depleted Georgia team who had offensive issues all year long, backup quarterback. And then they were basically able to overtake a one-dimensional Penn State team. So, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I just think they really weren't the second-best team. Ohio State has this penchant, I guess, in the playoff era to play teams in the semifinals. That's kind of the real national championship at the Alabama. Okay, the 85 yards through the heart of the South play with was that Elliott or Dobbins? I think it was Elliott. I don't remember. 2015, so it's got to be Elliott. That was a better game than the national championship against Oregon came out to be. The Peach Bowl against Georgia, they lost that game. That was a better game than the national championship turned out to be. Right. And then the game against Texas. I think that was a better game than the national championship game turned out to be. So Ohio State always ends up playing these games, and I kind of feel bad for them. I mean, this is basically a crazy tough game before the actual natty, So they were able to win 2 of them. 2 out of 3 is not bad.
Well, this was the seeding, and Ohio State was the hot hand. They just steamrolled through the playoffs.
They did, and I thought they had a really bad draw. I mean, they had to play Tennessee. Look, we all know what they did to Tennessee. Tennessee's not a bad football team. They're not an easy out.
Right.
And then they had to play, Texas? And then they had to play Notre Dame. So they basically had to win 3 really, really tough games in a row.
Yeah, 4 really tough games. They didn't get a bye. So they beat Tennessee. Then they beat...
I forgot all on Oregon. In the Rose Bowl. My bad.
The number 1 team in the country.
Number 1 team in the country, and they just blew the doors off them and made it was ugly. That was probably the biggest blowout of the 4 games they played against Oregon, team that they lost to early in the season. But yeah, they had 4 really, really tough opponents, and they were able to get it done. And I'll be honest with you, anybody that's watching this video that's an Ohio State fan, I am sorry. Knowing what we know about Ohio State the last 6-7 years, they can't win 4 tough games in a row against ranked opponents, but they were able to do it, so good for them.
Absolutely.
They lost their offensive and defensive coordinator, but whatever, it is what it is.
We're gonna talk about
they got it done. Didn't we talk a little bit about this?
We did, but now it's finally finalized, isn't it?
Yeah, Carson Beck got $10 million to go play at Miami with his girlfriend, whatever.
No. We kind of knew it was going to happen. What else? You got Zechariah Branch going.
That was something I thought was a really big signing for Georgia. And it wasn't just for him. They got his brother, who's a safety, which they need. They lost 2 safeties to the NFL. One of the guys played yesterday in the Senior Bowl, Dan Jackson. The other one, Malachi Starks, was a junior. Should be a first-round pick. Yeah. So they needed safety help. And they kind of worked together a package deal for these guys because they really needed wide receiver help as well. This is a guy that you can run him. You can throw the football to him, and he can return kicks. I think he's going to help Georgia out in that aspect because they lost a kick returner. They lost their best slot guy, Dominic Lovett. And they really don't have a guy with his kind of talent on the roster. I mean, you could think the punt returner, Anthony Evans, but Branch is a more proven guy. I think this is a huge signing for Georgia.
Well, you think Georgia's one of those programs this year, they just did not have any real playmakers.
No, they didn't have the talent of wideout. It's not... people can make excuses and blame who they want to blame, but let's face facts. Nobody could have seen what happened with Ra Thomas and Colby Young getting arrested like they did. Both guys were your wide receiver 1 and 2. Yeah. Ra Thomas easily would have been wide receiver 1. Yeah. All SEC caliber player.
Well, you start looking at the roster, and it's Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey really covered up a lot of deficiencies.
They did. You had Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, who was an NFL pick and a 4-year starter for Georgia.
A.D. Mitchell left.
A.D. Mitchell left and went to Texas after winning 2 national championships with Georgia, ended up going to Texas.
And Arian Foster couldn't catch a ball.
Arian Smith, and then he's great in the Senior Bowl.
Yes.
In the practices. Dylan Bell struggled. These are guys that were key players, role players. Right. But they weren't the guys like they had to be this year. They had Brock Bowers, except Ladd McConkey, Rosemy-Jacksaint, Ra Thomas. You had guys like that And then these guys could have come in and spell them and make some plays. This year they were the guys and they couldn't get it done.
It works out that way sometimes, but you just kind of expected more from that receiving core. And the offensive line actually blocking somebody, and those running backs busting out big plays, and you just didn't see enough of that this season. What else we got on here?
Eric Singleton went from Georgia Tech to Auburn. Georgia Tech lost their two biggest offensive threats, both wideouts, both transferred. I don't know who they got in the portal, if they got anybody of note, but those are big losses for Georgia Tech. LSU lost a lot of guys, but LSU kind of, they replenished through the portal and recruiting, so nothing really to be concerned about if you're LSU.
Miller Moss goes to Louisville. Let's see.
I like him. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Auburn made some hay in the transfer portal. Michigan made some hay in the transfer portal. They got Justice Haynes. They got Troy Bowles, Todd Bowles' son, the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams benefiting, some losing.
There's still a couple hundred guys in the portal that don't have homes yet. Quarterback Jaden Rashada, who left Georgia, nobody picked him up. Nobody offered him any kind of scholarship. So now he has decided he is going to go through spring practice with Georgia and then use that spring transfer window. Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of guys doing that as well. Speaking of transfers, Nebraska, big hypocrite Matt Rule has been known to raid SEC programs for players. Took 15 transfers this year and doesn't want to have a spring game because he's concerned about guys showing out and then getting poached. That's the era we live in. Family members can be contacted by coaching staffs and agents and handlers, and hey, your son or your family friend's not in the portal yet. We're prepared to give him X amount of money if he jumps on in. Nebraska's really good at that.
Well, isn't there rules to that? Like you jump ship and you transfer to Nebraska January 1st, and next thing you know, you're doing spring game, you get offered scholarship. You're out a year, right?
I don't know. It's basically the Wild West. I don't know about transfers that just transferred in and starting now. Yeah. He doesn't want to risk guys leaving so they're not having a spring game. And that's basically the gist of it. You get a lot of that. Now, look like Damon Wilson, Georgia's leading return sack guy. He has family members be contacted by Ohio State in November. Everyone thinks it's a lot to Ohio State. Missouri comes in and it's like, whatever Ohio State's going to pay you, we'll double it. So guess what? He went to Missouri and took the money. Yeah. Congratulations, dude. You're on Missouri now.
Yeah, you're never going to win.
So, how many NFL scouts are watching those practices and games compared to Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama and Texas? He went to Missouri and took the cash. Yeah. Bad move there. This dude needs a huge season because he's a junior. Had to think, 5 sacks on the season? Probably would have been the leading sack guy again for Georgia. Could have went pro. I think this is a huge mistake, but that's NIL. He's going to take the money. If you went to Ohio State, you would have been fine. Yeah. You would have had a big season as well in that program. Yeah. But you went to Missouri. Yeah. I'll be interested to see how he does this season because this just could have been a cash grab, and he could have cost himself 2 to 3 rounds of a draft status.
We'll see. You never know. Sometimes the money's worth it.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what Georgia was offering him. I don't know what Missouri offered him.
Maybe if he's smart, puts it in the bank, and he's a 6th-round draft pick, he might need to fall back on that. But I think if you stay at Georgia or you go to Ohio State and you're a 1st or 2nd-round pick, you're set.
Yeah. Well, what else we got to discuss here?
We're kind of on hiatus, so there's not a ton. We talked most about this. The coaching changes. There's been some changes. There's been some coordinated changes. Grubb from the Seattle Seahawks was just named the offensive coordinator for Alabama this year, so we'll see how that goes. There's still some teams yet to make some moves, getting rid of guys, accepting other positions. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right, we'll call it, and then we'll maybe pick up sometime during the spring.
We'll talk a little spring football.
And then we'll be, week 0.
Yeah, hopefully I don't get the damn flu again.
Yeah. We got 30 days of college football. We'll see you guys later.
See ya.